which is Issue 1, Battling Bill.
House Judiciary Democrats on Tuesday grilled Attorney General William Barr. While Barr defended President Trump's decision to send federal law enforcement officers into various cities, Democrats attacked the Attorney General as a puppet for Trump's excesses. The phrase of the day was, quote, reclaiming my time, unquote, from Democrats who interrupted Barr before he could respond to their questions. This led to Barr's exasperated riposte.
That Congress can determine the meaning of inhabitant for this purpose, that it is not a self-defining term as they
only got 2 minutes, sir.
That they recognized.
Mr. Barr, if I may.
Yeah, but this is a hearing. I thought I was the one that was supposed to be heard.
Pat, we've had the president obviously changing some of the narrative on Thursday with his comments about perhaps postponing the election. But how did you see this showdown between the Attorney General and Democrats? Didn't it calcify just that proof of partisanship that now defines our political landscape?
I'll say, Tom, basically what we saw up there was an American version of the Soviet trials of the show trials of the 1930s, with Barr in the witness seat and being accused and charged and attacked and insulted. And then when he answered, they said, basically, give me back my time. What did this show? I think it showed Barr doing very well. I think most folks came away supporting their man or their team in this. But I will say, it was one of the worst performances I've ever seen by a congressional committee.
Eleanor, your thoughts?
There was plenty of grandstanding on both sides. That isn't exactly new. And I don't think we learned anything particularly new about the Attorney General, except that he is going to function as a tool of the president's. While he was testifying, Vice President Pence was negotiating with the governor of Oregon to withdraw the federal paramilitary troops from the city of Portland. There's a division within the administration about how far to go with this occupation of American cities. It's so transparently a political ploy, and the consensus is that it basically inflames violence. It doesn't reduce it. Also, what Barr said about the election was truly chilling. He's parroting what the president is saying, that you can't trust mail-in votes, that foreign countries are going to somehow hack our election with millions of bogus ballots. I mean, there's no evidence to any of this. And when he was challenged about the fact that there's no evidence that foreign countries could interfere with a mail-in election, he said it was just common sense. Whose common sense? Only that of an administration that is desperately backing up a president who has basically said he'll do anything to try to retain power.
David, do you think, one of the angles the president has taken here, Bill Barr, is the idea of law and order, and with Democrat rhetoric, Eleanor speaking there, that Democrats see this as an occupation, potentially quite a hostile narrative towards police officers that may or may not be damaging. And yet, why do you think the president is coming out with these comments about mail-in ballots, and then on Thursday, as I noted, suggesting maybe the election should be deferred?
I mean, I think the president's doing that because there are legitimate concerns about having a presidential election with this amount of mail-in ballots when we've never done it before. I think, it could take a very, very long time to determine what the results are. I think we could see lawsuits like we've never seen before. So I definitely think there are legitimate concerns, and certainly the president was trolling a bit with the 3 question marks at the end of his tweet. But to get back to Eleanor's point, I think Barr, even though it's telling when there's a witness, usually if there's a witness who's either made mistakes or is telling lies, you want to give the witness time to talk. You want to ask them the tough question, and you want to watch them squirm. They couldn't do that. When Representative Jayapal said, well, why did you send, why did you have federal officers in Portland, but not in Michigan? And it's only because one's Trump supporters and one, isn't. Barr was about to make a very competent answer, which is that in Michigan, it was a state house. In Portland, it's a federal courthouse, so I have authority. She didn't let him because that would have ruined his soundbite. And I think that was really the disservice to the American people, is that the administration does have very good answers for why they're dealing with these people who are literally trying to burn down a courthouse. Okay. And thankfully now Portland authorities are going to deal with it, which they should have in the first place.
Okay. Clarence, very good arguments.
Well, they did deal with it. Local authorities were dealing with it, and as everyone should know by now, before the federal troops came in, the action was scaling down. There were fewer people outside, and then when these unannounced federal troops arrive, and that's why I call them, although folks also like to call them agents. They're people cobbled together by Homeland Security mostly from other services like the Border Patrol is now patrolling our border with Oregon. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, the fact is that Barr performed very well. I thought I expected this kind of performance. He knows the law from a very, very conservative point of view and a very pro. He favors a strong executive, meaning that whatever the president wants to do, he can do it, which is just what Donald Trump was looking for when he said, "Who's going to be my Roy Cohn?" And he's got him in a very competent way, a very articulate way with Bill Barr. But you know, I thought in civics class I learned that the Attorney General was supposed to be a somewhat quasi-independent a voice for the law and the Constitution. President Trump treats him like his own personal lawyer, and Bill Barr's going along with that.
Okay, well, let's quickly do a round robin again with the panelists. Pat, yeah.
Tom, you know, when Bill Barr, I thought he did an outstanding job there. But what we have not heard from the Democrats, basically, all we get is peaceful protesters. Now, these protests in Portland, they're going after the Mark Hatfield building. They were going night after night after night. They went for 60 days, they've gone now almost. And nary a word of condemnation has come from the liberal wing of the Democratic Party. And I think Joe Biden recognizes what's going on, because when they trotted him out this week, he did say people that do what they're doing out there, breaking up things, ought to be arrested, prosecuted, and put in jail. And I do think, I mean, the idea that federal agents are responsible for the 2 months of tearing down statues and smashing and rioting and anarchism, in addition to the peaceful protests, I think that's absurd. So,
Eleanor.
Well, when I look at Portland, I see the wall of moms. I see the wall of vets. I see that Navy vet being clobbered for just coming up and asking some question. There's no I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that the intervention of the federal agents, or whatever term we're using, brought out more protesters. And I think when we start looking, there probably are some infiltrators. There are some opportunistic looters, yes. There are also some of the Boogaloo Boys and the Proud Boys and all that. But for the most part, these are peaceful protests. And Justice Department, Barr, they're talking about sending more federal quasi troops into Cleveland, Detroit, and Milwaukee, I believe. And to David's point, I don't think they're going there to protect federal buildings. There weren't any named federal buildings. They're going in there to, if needed, help create the images of chaos and violence that the president needs to distract from the fact that we passed 150,000 dead Americans this week and 4.5 million people infected. And there's no clear strategy, no national strategy to restrain the virus. That is his major problem. And to resurrect an old saying, he can run, but he can't hide.
Okay, we've got about 80 seconds.
And by the way, there's about two blocks of this riot zone. That's it. The rest of Portland is the same as it's always been. And why, if the president was right, why did he send his troops in there unannounced? Like he's taking over the town. He's just directly intruding and provoking. This is kind of like some kind of a Fort Sumter over again, I guess. But the fact is that people are being arrested out there. Local authorities are prosecuting, and the outsiders were not needed, except, as Eleanor says, to give President Trump some nice visuals for his ads.
David, your
why is let's let protect the federal building provocative?
Okay.
Absolutely, but to address the wall of vets, I mean, we always respect veteran service, but there's veterans in the Hells Angels. There's veterans in the Aryan Brotherhood. That doesn't just
even veterans in the press, by the way.
Yes, that doesn't validate a movement. And if the new rule, there's 18 million veterans in America. If the new rule is we have to do what they say, they voted for Trump 2-1. So I think Republicans would sign up for that.
All right.
Have evidence discrediting the wall of vets that showed up in Portland? If you don't, I wouldn't speak
I'm sure
so
they are
loudly
vets.
about
I'm sure
it.
they are vets. I'm just saying that doesn't that doesn't give them magical moral superiority.
Let's move on. A concluding thought, though. We love our veteran Clarence. Anyway,